Should have just done a speech on being nervous, right?
That's our next topic.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Alright guys, watching Ronda Rousey in her 13-second knockout, watching Kerry Walsh, Jennings, and Miss May Trainer win in their volleyball Olympics back-to-back 3 years in a row, and watching Billie Jean King beat Bobby Riggs in a tennis match in 1972 were great impacts on me as a female in the United States. Being not only an athlete, but a female in the United States, this should affect everyone, and especially females as well. The events I mentioned before would not have been possible without Title IX. Title IX was passed in 1972, and from the definition is, by the U.S. Department of Education, it's defined as no person in the United States shall on the basis of sex be excluded from participation in, denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal funding. Today I will get you up to speed on the law passed. I'll give you the definition, and I gave you the definition and I'll explain it in better terms. I'll explain the effects of sports on men and women. Then I will show how schools were affected. And following that, I'll give a pro and a con, and finally women's accomplishments. In general, the definition, basically in other words, means that if a program is federally funded, women and men get the same opportunities, no matter what. The title ensures that they have the same amount of sports, so not saying that women have to have football, but if there was enough people to do it, then that would be under the title, fall under the title. So like women and men both have soccer, women and men both have tennis, women and men both have all these different things, and that is what is also ensured by Title IX. For another example is uniforms. Men and women both would get top-of-the-line uniforms. Like, obviously football gear is more expensive than, like, say, swim gear, or tennis gear or soccer gear. But if men were getting Adidas, Adidas, Mizuno, ASIC, Nike, all these top-of-the-line products, then women are subjected to get also the same top-of-the-line products for their sport uniform. So equal access to higher education is also a benefit from Title IX. So mechanics, women were not able to be part of mechanics. They were not able to do engineering, stuff like that. After Title IX, women were allowed to do those things, and also this relates to men. Men were not allowed to be in drama, figure skating, and stuff that was considered more feminine. And after Title IX, men benefited from this, because most people do think that men do not benefit from Title IX, which in fact they do. Before Title IX, women were not able to participate in sports in a competitive manner. It was for fun. It was never a score. There wasn't very much competitiveness or competitive nature allowed. And women's uniforms were very restricting to long skirts and collared shirts. So there's not much you could do in long shirts and collared shirts if you want to actually be effective. By Title IX is that you have more funding for coaches, uniforms, playing fields, travel, etc. Any expense that is needed to participate in sport. A con created by Title IX is you're involved with the opposite sex. You're more involved with the opposite sex. So in today's terms, like for an example of today, partying. It leads to more partying. And partying can usually nowadays leads to alcohol. Alcohol can lead to unprotected sex or even rape, which is another point that Title IX covers. It protects against rape and sexual assault for men and women. Title IX is made to be perfect, but as we all know, nothing is perfect. So a flaw of Title IX is that that women still get 40% of the budget, only get 40% versus men get the other 60%, or however you want to do it. In most situations, women get less than the men do still. So even after all these advances, some aspect women are still overseen. Besides the recent Misty May trainer, Kerry Walsh Jennings, volleyball careers, Ronda Rousey, a female boxer with a 13-second knockout. Another major accomplishment I wish to speak about today is Billie Jean King beating Bobby Riggs in the tennis match, labeled Battle of the Sexes. This was a great accomplishment for women and a great way to start off Title IX. And I have a short video that I would like to show you guys.
Female athletes.
Most women in sports today can't remember a time without Title IX, but they benefit from it every day. I spoke with one of the law's early champions, tennis great Billie Jean King.
That was the whole purpose. It was about social change.
In 1973, the nation was captivated when 29-year-old Billie Jean King defeated tennis ace Bobby Riggs in a match dubbed the Battle of the Sexes. A match met with more fanfare than any other in tennis history. For King, it wasn't about proving she had the skill to beat a man on the court. It was about the future. Why was that so important to you? Because it was about much more than a match for you.
Oh, it was about social change. You have to remember in 1973 when I played Bobby, or in 1972 when Title IX was passed, women could not get a credit card on their own without it being co-signed by a male, for instance, just to give you one example.
Although women's sports are gaining progress, we still have a long way to go. Ronda Rousey, Misty May, Kerry Walsh, and more, for example, Billie Jean King, are making an impact in women's accomplishments. In this time I've been up here, I've taught you about Title IX, the impacts on both men and women on sports and academics, the pros and cons of women's accomplishments and women's accomplishments. Title IX is a great way to help gender equality and is and still will be a major topic until it does not have to be anymore. Thank you.
All right, so Chelsea, what'd you think?
It was really good. I got a clear preview and like saved all the points we were going to talk about. The visuals were good and the video was really well with your PowerPoint. And I didn't know about this topic before, so it was cool to learn about it and made it really clear and easy to understand. The only thing that I would say was that you could have had like better transitions just to understand where you were going to next. And that was really good. That's it.
Well, I thought you had a good visual at the beginning for an intention device. The subject was pretty clearly identified, and you had a reasonable thesis. It's an important subject, so you gave it a little bit of justification, which I thought was fine. And it sounded like you had a pretty good preview, although the idea that you were watching Billie Jean King beat Bobby Rigg, and I don't know if you've watched that whole thing. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. It sounds a little strange to hear, since it happened well before you were born, to hear you describe it as if it was a first-person experience instead of a second-hand experience. So that sounded a little bit awkward. Although I do think that there is a setup in the preview of what the structure is going to be, I didn't think that it was very clear in the body of the speech what was going on, and it wasn't until the summary at the end of the speech, when you kind of reorganize things, that the material makes a little bit more sense. It really feels kind of random during the presentation. I think there is more to it than just the random information that you're giving us, but it's not very clear why there's more to it and how it's being put together, and that's unfortunate. You go off on some side tangents that I'm not exactly sure mean that much. The whole discussion of the uniforms is like, I don't know why that's an illustration of maybe one thing that might change as a result of financing by Title IX of colleges or high school athletic programs, but I'm not exactly sure that the shirts and the skirts are the thing that changed because of Title IX. I think that's mostly having to do with other social issues that are going along. If they, provide uniforms for one group, they have to provide uniforms for the other group. If they give them, access to practice facilities, and the other group gets access to practice facilities. I think that's the kind of thing that you want to be talking about, and you just kind of, you're focusing on this weird thing that's, probably the least important part of the Title IX thing. And then there is a connection to Title IX protections concerning equality of the sexes and treatment without discrimination. But the way you've tied it in by, talking about, well, that means that the sexes mixed together, that means partying, that means drinking, that means sex, that means possibly rape. I think you've just, gone off the deep end and going in that direction there. There are Title IX issues that are related to that, but you haven't explained how Title IX applies to those sorts of things. You make it sound like Title IX is a cause of all this stuff, as opposed to an attempt to address some of those issues, and I think you've got it a little bit backwards. And I'm going to disagree with Chelsea about the visuals. You had one slide up there most of the time, and then I think there were 4 or 5 other slides that I saw for a fraction of a second as you were flicking through and never made any reference to. And then we have the video clip, which, I think the interview with Billie Jean King's okay, although 90% of what she said you could have just quoted. I think you could have, showed us the end of the tennis match and then talked about how important it was in the context of the times and how it was related to those things, and maybe then give us the quote from Billie Jean King. You don't necessarily have to play the interview in that situation. That just feels like it's, extraneous at that point. I did think that you tried to step out and speak to the audience pretty regularly. You just need to be better practiced at doing so that you know what it is you're saying, because it seems like you would come out and you'd start talking about something and then you're winging it a little bit, and I'm not sure that you had your content under control. But I appreciated the effort of trying to connect and relate to the audience, and so that's a step up. All right, thank you.